Hello friends, welcome back. I'm happy to be here with you today. So today we're going to be making a fun card with Pajama Crafter Stamps products, doing a technique that may be a little different than what you've seen in the past. There's lots of different ways to do this technique, and we're going to look at one of them. So this is a card that I posted last week for Beach Week here at Pajama Crafter Stamps, and I made just a beach scene here with the sand and then into the water. And what we're going to be doing today is creating this fun kind of sea foam or froth or spray, whatever you want to call that kind of white sudsy stuff that's there right where the tide comes in. So we're going to be doing that today, and I'm going to show you on a totally different card. We're not making this one, but I wanted to share that one with you. Today we're going to be making this fun water card. It's a shaker. Let me get some of the shaker bits around, and I've went around the whole thing here with making that fun foamy froth. And we're going to be using the Pajama Crafter Stamps Mother Puffer set to do this. I'm going to be using the puffer fish. On this card, I used Nope, Not Today. And I'm going to use the Keep Calm and Stay Sensational. That's going to be stamped on the inside of our card. Now, to make this scene, I had to get a little bit creative because I needed a worm. Well, I don't exactly have a worm stamp, but what I do have is a pretzel. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can kind of trim off this pretzel and turn that into a worm. So that is what I have done. And I also needed some seaweed and some kind of little stamp that was going to create my interest inside my shaker. And so I went to the pumpkin and spice treats, and there's two little greenery stamps in this set. And these look like oak leaves down here, but I thought these would be good to kind of mimic my underwater foliage. So I'm using that one as well. And the last thing I'm going to be using today is one sheet of this really pretty blue textured paper from our birthday bash paper collection. And I have gone ahead and I have prepared our blue piece. And to get this shape right here, if you have any wavy nested dies, you can do that. But if you don't, you take a smaller oval and then just freehand cut your wavy lines, starting with your oval. So you can just go ahead and die cut an oval and then freehand whatever shape, because that's just a wavy shape. There's no right or wrong. You can just go for it. And then I cut out a little bit smaller piece of paper. This is about a 1/4 inch smaller than the next one. So this is 4 by 5 1/4. And I did the same thing. But on this one, you'll want to make your wavy shape different, because when we layer them up, we want to be able to see that lighter color underneath the darker blue. And then for my final panel piece, I cut one, and this one is approximately 4 by 5 1/4 as well, and it's going to fit right in here. And that's going to be the back side of our shaker. I used some purple Copic markers to color up a purple puffer fish. And of course you could do that whatever colors you like, but I went for purple this time. The last time I used the Mother Puffer stamp set, I colored my puffer fishes orange, so I just wanted to go a different way. And then I also stamped several of the two leafy pieces to make myself some greenery. The one other thing that you're going to need to make this card, I needed something to be my fish hook. Now, a fish hook kind of looks like the letter J. So if you have a thin alphabet stamp, the letter J will work perfect for this. You can also use like the handle of an umbrella or something like that. So go through your stash, but I think a letter J would work perfectly. So I have gone ahead and I have cut myself one of those as well. And I have a little circle here for my sentiment. I have some thin foam tape that I'm going to be using, and some shaker bits. And how can I forget? We're going to turn this pretzel into a worm. So I've colored my worm up in shades of orange. And I also have a piece of acetate cut down here to fit my papers. So I think that is pretty much everything we're going to need other than some shaker bits when we get ready. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing we're going to do is make our froth. That way it can be drying while we go on with the rest of our project. So to do this, let me grab a piece of just, well, what I like to call scratch paper, but it's just, you know, paper from the trash. It's old, old stuff. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to glue this one to the underneath one. And excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. You know how you can feel it coming on? I was feeling it coming on. And I like to do this step before I add the acetate. So we're just going to, I'm going to turn it this way because I want it to kind of be oblong. Yeah, that's the way I want it. There you go. All right, so my pen in. So one other item you're going to need is some pigment white ink, some white, sorry, I kind of said that wrong way, white pigment ink. And I like to use just a foam applicator. And this is one of those that has kind of little divots and stuff like a sponge. And sponge up our applicator, and I'm just going to press all the way around here, creating that foamy look. I like to go all the way around. And this is personal preference on how much foam you want, but I usually go around a couple times. And the first time I went around, you saw I inked it up a lot more. This time I'm wanting to get like the lighter kind of second generation type stamp. So I'm just continuing to go around there, maybe getting some spots a little further up on my blue, you know, just to make it. But now I'm going to come back, and in just a few spots, I'm going to make it heavier. All right, now to really make our foam come to life, this is the step I think you just can't miss. I like to take my glitter tray, and you know, I have a tray, but if you're just sprinkling, you can sprinkle it on as well. But the way I do it is I just lay it down here in my glitter tray and tap that so that that pigment ink picks up some of that glitter. And then tap it off. And there we go. We've got our sparkly sea froth. Isn't that fun? It adds such an extra element to your water scenes. I just think that's really fun. So before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over. We're going to add our acetate on the back, and then we'll set this aside to dry. Just getting a chunk of double-sided adhesive here, and I'm just going to run that along the edge. There. I'm keeping this here on my scratch piece of paper because that pigment ink, it is still wet, and it's going, if I move this paper, we'd be getting pigment ink all over our desktop. So pigment ink takes quite a while to dry. That's why we do this step first. And it may still not be dry even when we get to the end, but hopefully it's dry enough that we can work with it. All right, so I'm just going to add my piece of acetate on here. I got it a little off, so I'm going to have to trim it down. Just going to trim that up real quick. Whoops. All right, so there we go. We have our the top portion here of our water scene ready to go. So now I'm going to get rid of that, and we're going to move on to the next step. And this is where we're going to create our background for our shaker. And to do that, I'm going to pull out some inks. I've got some purple and some light blue. And I'm just going to, I'm going to try not to shake my table here, but we're just going to add some, and I don't want this to be smooth. I want it to be kind of messy. Is that the right color? Yes. Okay, so tap off on this, and we're going to add some purples in there as well, just to give some highlights. So you can kind of see how I've just made myself a real kind of messy blended area here. I'm going to add a little bit more blue. All right, that ought to do it. Now this next part I think is fun. We're going to take our little leaves from our pumpkin spice set, and we're going to create ourselves some seaweed in our background. So I'm going to start with the darker green, which I've got right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this here so I can kind of see where I want to start. And I'm doing second generation stamping there. Just like that, overlapping it on purpose so we get different looks. Put some over here. And I'm also going to do one from the top. Maybe I'll do a couple from the top. We'll see. Whoops, and that one's kind of off. I need to move it over a bit. There we go. Always just coming back, checking, making sure how that's going to look in my scene. All right, I think that is good. Just going to clean this stamp off, and now we're going to do it in the light green. I always love it when I can do things like this with some of these little stamps that come in stamp sets, because I just feel like it's really stretching your sets and getting your money's worth out of your stamp sets. And I like that. So I'm just going to add this one just to kind of, probably won't do too much second generation with this color. But letting just kind of. And it's totally personal preference on how much seaweed you want to be in your little water scene there, but I think that ought to do it for now. But I am going to come back and add a little bit of the purple just to pick up. I've got two shades of kind of a rose colored pink here. And I'm just going to add some of that into my seaweed patches. And some of that may show, some of it may not, but it's all right. We're just going to kind of get creative with it and add some of that purple in there. And I'm going to clean that off real quick because I see I might be getting it on my. There we go. But remember, we're going to be adding shaker bits in here, so it's okay if it's that one again. You know, those little splotches won't bother me. Once we get our shaker bits in there, that's going to be fine. I'm not going to use this darker color. I think that color is going to work for us really well. And we go ahead and move this. All right, I'm just going to pull out that piece of scratch paper again. And what I'm going to do is put my foam around my window so that we can get ready for our shaker. I've been making a lot of shakers here lately. I don't know why. I go in spurts, you know. Sometimes I won't do them for a long time. Then all of a sudden everything looks like a shaker to me. And that's kind of where I am right now. It's like every card I start to do, I'm like, ah, that needs to be a shaker. So, all right. I think I did get a little bit of that ink on my window, but I think my puffer fish will cover that up. So, okay, let's go ahead and put our shaker bits in. And I just chose some kind of discs that have purples and blues, greens. It's kind of a eclectic mix. It's probably some that I've kind of mixed up different sets together. When I get down to just a little bit, sometimes I'll just dump them all in there together. And I think that's what I've done here. So I'm going to add this one because it's got some fun little things in there. Rollaways. See, you can see how I just kind of throw them all in there together. I'm not very good at keeping it all separate. So, all right, let's what do you think of our sea froth? I don't know if there's an official name for that stuff. I guess foam. I'm not sure what you call it, but that's what I'm calling it. So there we go. Isn't that fun? Look at our seaweed under there. I love it. I think that's so cool. Okay, let's add our puffer fish. And remember that thin foam that I had? I'm going to put my puffer fish on some foam. And then we're going to create ourselves a worm. It has definitely become summer here in Texas. Suddenly, it's hot everywhere we go. And I'm afraid it's going to be that way for a while. It's here to stay, I think. So, okay. So I'm going to put my puffer fish right over here on the right side. And I didn't want to cover up all of my fun seaweed that I made, but that'll be right there. So now let's turn our pretzel into a worm. And you can see here, this one side of the pretzel, I went ahead and cut out the center because we're going to hook that right onto our fish hook here that we've made. So I'm going to take my little trimming scissors and I'm just going to trim myself right around here just like that. There we go. Voila, we have a worm. And now we're going to just hook that worm right here on our letter J or umbrella handle, whichever you find in your stash. But most of us, I think, probably have a letter J that will work. And if you don't, you know, just freehand a hook. It's not hard. And, you know, just make a letter J and make it three-dimensional and cut it out, and it'll work fine because the hook is not the main image on your card. It's just a functional thing there to hold our worms. So we're not going to be picky about that. Now, I do want it to be a bit shorter because I'm going to put it right here on my... And what I actually did before is I kind of hid the hook under my sentiment. So I think we'll do that again. So let's go ahead and stamp our sentiment, and then we'll add some more seaweed. So for my sentiment, I'm going to use the Flirty Fuchsia color again because that's going to be a darker purple. And I'm going to use this Nope, Not Today again. And the way I was looking at this card was of kind of like that worm being a temptation to our puffer fish. And it's like, nope, not today. Not giving in to whether it's you're on a diet and you're saying no to that cupcake over there, or perhaps there's something else going on into your life that you're saying, nope, not today. And then on the inside, I'm going to stamp keep calm and stay sensational. So I think this could be an encouragement card for all kinds of things. All right. Now for my Nope, Not Today, I could put it on just like this, and that looks just fine. It's almost like it's a speech bubble maybe, or a thought bubble. But the first time I went ahead and took a little finger dauber and I used my lighter rose color that I used to stamp my seaweed, and I just went around the edges a little bit to give that some dimension so it didn't just look like a floating bubble up there. I thought that looked nice having a little bit of pink around the edges. Oops. I'm going to use just a little bit of foam here on the back of the circle, but on the back of my worm and fish hook, I'm actually going to add some glue. All right, so to finish this card off, we're going to take some of our seaweed pieces here and add those just down in the corners. And you could definitely leave it just like this, but I kind of liked the addition of a little bit of that that's on the inside, bringing that to the outside. And I did color some of these with just a little bit of Copic, just really light Copic colors. Oops. Now I'm going to add a couple of the purple over here. One more little piece of purple. All right, now I'm going to take this and from the back, just trim off those little edges that are hanging off. But whoa. All right. For our final step, I'm going to grab a card base and I am going to stamp our inside sentiment. I think I'm going to use some black to do that, and then to add some color, we'll do a few more of our little seaweeds on the inside. So here's our hash mark. I think about right there is looking good. Perfect. You can always tell when you've got good quality stamps because you can just freehand stamp them right there if you've got good ink. So, all right, what did I do with that piece of paper? Now I want these to kind of be stamped off. So, similar to what we did on the inside. I'm just going to do a little bit right down here. like that one. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. Maybe just one more dark green one. All right, there we go. Go ahead and add our shaker to the front of this card and take a look at our creation today. All right, there we go. We have 2 of our pufferfish cards, and let's take a look again at our little sea froth here. So I hope you like this idea of using your white pigment ink and some glitter to create your fun water foam and some froth, and I think that just really adds some sparkle and some texture to these water cards. So thank you so much for joining me today. All of my Pajama Crafter Stamps products are going to be listed right below this video, and we would love it if you would hit that thumbs up mark, and if you enjoy these videos, it would mean a lot to us if you'd think about subscribing. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to crafting with you again very soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.